What if closing a deal didn't feel like convincing, but felt like the natural next step? For most MSPs, closing is where everything tightens up. The conversation has been going well, the prospect is engaged, everything feels on track. Then it's time to close, and something changes. Your tone shifts, your energy changes. You start thinking about what to say next, and without realizing it, you begin to push. You try to guide the decision faster. You start reinforcing value. You add more explanation, and the prospect feels it immediately. That pressure, that shift, that moment where the conversation stops feeling natural and starts feeling like a decision is being forced. So what do? They pull back, they slow down, they hesitate, they create space, not because they're not interested, but because the dynamic changed. Now, instead of moving forward, the deal starts to stall. And most MSPs think the issue is closing. They think they need better lines, better techniques, better ways to ask for the business. But closing's not the problem. Closing is where problems show up. Because if everything before that point was done correctly, closing does not feel like pressure. It feels like confirmation. Think about it. If the problem is clear, if the impact is understood, if the solution is aligned, then what is left to convince? Nothing. The decision has already been built. Closing is just where it becomes visible. But if any of those pieces are missing, closing becomes difficult. Because now you're trying to create certainty at the last moment instead of building it throughout the conversation. And that is where most deals break. Because you can't force clarity at the end. You can't rush understanding. You can't push someone into a decision that they're not ready to make. And the more you try, the more resistance you create. That's why closing feels uncomfortable. Not because it's supposed to be hard, but because something earlier in the process was incomplete. The MSPs that close consistently understand this. They don't treat closing like a performance. They treat it like a checkpoint. A simple moment to confirm what has already been established. A simple question does the job. Does this solve the problem we talked about? That's it. No pressure, no push, no over-explanation. And they listen because the response tells you everything. If the answer is yes, the conversation moves forward naturally. If there's hesitation, that's not a closing issue. That is a clarity issue. Something was not fully understood. Something was not fully connected. Something was not fully owned. And now it's showing up. Most MSPs try to fix that by talking more. They add more detail. They reinforce more value. They try to push through the hesitation. That's usually what makes it worse. Because now you're increasing pressure instead of resolving the gap. The better move is to step back. Go back to the problem and ask a few more questions. Clarify what's missing. Bring the conversation back into alignment, then move forward again. Because when alignment is there, closing takes care of itself. There's no tension, no resistance, no need to convince, just a clear decision. That's what a strong process creates. Not pressure, but clarity. So if closing feels like the hardest part of your sales process, that's the signal. Not to focus on closing, but to look at everything leading up to it. Because when that's dialed in, closing becomes simple. If you want to see how to build that kind of process into your conversations, you can take a closer look at CharTec Academy or walk through it on a call. Sometimes removing pressure from closing is just a matter of fixing what happens before it. And in the next video, we're going to break down why growth starts to stall when everything depends on you and how to remove yourself as the bottleneck.